This week, Iowa lawmakers passed a bill that takes away civil rights protections from trans people. You can now legally be denied a home or a job simply because of your gender identity. This is a group of American citizens that were recognized as needing civil rights protections that has now had those protections revoked. What this bill is essentially doing is legally saying that trans people do not exist. It's pretty surreal to look at the amendments and removals of this bill. After having rights for 18 years, it is now legal to discriminate against trans people, simply because they are trans. What happened to Iowa? When I was in high school in 2009, Iowa became the third state to legalize same-sex marriage. To go from that version of Iowa to this current version of Iowa is incredibly heartbreaking when it comes to humans' rights and advancing as a nation. This is a massive step backwards. Let's talk about some Iowa government history because this was not the first time this bill was introduced. HF 2164 was introduced by Iowa representatives in 2020. Directly from the bill, this is an act removing gender identity as a protected class under the Iowa Civil Rights Act. This bill originally had 9 bill sponsors. Absolute demons. Stephen Holt was the chairman of the House Judiciary and killed the bill, saying that there would be a lot of unintended consequences. Quote, the message that such an action would send to people is not an acceptable message. It's a pretty reasonable take in 2020 from an Iowa Republican, right? He won't change his mind on this, right? February 23rd, 2025. Basically, the exact same bill was brought forth by none other than Stephen Holt, who now says, in spite of loud proclamations otherwise, transgender Iowans will have the same rights and protections as everyone else, as they should, but the removal of gender identity as a protected class, particularly women, who stand to be erased, along with decades of gains towards equality. So basically, he's pretending that removing civil rights protections for trans people is positive for women. He says that trans people have the same rights as everyone else, but those rights are based off the gender they were assigned at birth. What he's essentially saying here is that trans people don't exist, so they don't need these rights and protections. So a bill in 2020 that was immediately killed is now being passed with a 60-36 vote. So I want to talk about another bill brought forward back in February of 2023. This is directly from the bill's text. The state of Iowa recognizes the definition of marriage to be the solemnized union between one human biological male and one human biological female. Then, yes, this was a bill presented to ban gay marriage that was rightfully shut down immediately. 3 of the sponsors of the original anti-trans bill also were sponsors for the 2023 anti-gay marriage bill. Skylar Wheeler, Thomas Gerhold. You'll never guess how they voted for the most recent iteration of this anti-trans bill. These are voted members of Iowa's government who are openly against gay marriage. I'm generally not in favor of the slippery slope argument, but we are seeing American citizens losing their rights and their protections right before our eyes. We are seeing bills that 2 years ago were outlandish now passing in landslides. So I don't think it's a stretch to worry that gay marriage might be next in the chopping block. A bill like this passing is exactly why these protections need to exist. A large portion of Americans do not understand gender identity and choose to hate it rather than try to understand it. To the people who are in favor of this bill, you're in favor of removing the freedoms of Americans. Really ask yourself this question. Why would somebody choose to be hated this much? Nobody would choose this. Whether you understand it or not, trans people exist. I believe in a country where citizens have the freedom to live however the fuck they want.